My name is Dana, and I often find myself wondering how different life might have been if my mother had not fallen ill. She passed away when I was only 7 years old, marking a turning point in our family's life. Our home, once filled with her laughter and adorned with countless photos of joyful family moments, suddenly grew silent. My father struggled deeply with her loss. He became withdrawn, immersing himself in work and returning to a home where I did my best to stay quiet and unobtrusive. At that age, the concept of death eluded me, and I frequently asked when Mom would return from heaven. My father, engulfed in his grief, could only embrace me, offering no words. Eventually, my father met Helena during a work-related event. Her presence brought a rare smile to his face, and gradually, she became a regular visitor at our house. Observing the subtle changes in my dad's demeanor, I remained silent even as photographs of my mom were slowly replaced with ones featuring Helena. One evening, my father and Helena gathered me in the living room, where I fidgeted nervously with my dress to announce their marriage. Helena would be moving in, they explained, promising a wonderful new chapter. But the reality was far from wonderful. After their honeymoon, Helena began imposing her order in our home. She redecorated, established strict rules, and criticized my untidiness and noise, despite my being just a young child. My father, seeking peace, merely advised me to obey Helena, insisting she knew best. One day, I accidentally overheard them arguing. Helena suggested it might be better if I lived with my grandmother, citing my struggle to adjust. My father quietly refuted, citing promises made to my late mother about my upbringing and my future. Life became even more challenging when Helena announced her pregnancy. My father was thrilled, yet Helena's remarks about having her own child pierced my heart, underscoring her view of me as merely someone else's daughter. When my sister Allison was born, I was introduced to even more responsibilities. At 9 years old, standing beside my father in the hospital, I was declared a big sister, a role I embraced without understanding the full implications. Bringing Allison home meant new duties for me. Helena quickly enlisted my help for everything from diaper changes to meal preparations. By the age of 9, while other children played, I was well-versed in the routines of childcare, from preparing baby formula to cooking simple meals. This was my childhood, marked by the complexities of a blended family and the responsibilities thrust upon me at a tender age. I really wanted to go to Kira's birthday celebration. "Please, I want to go," I remember begging on Saturday. But Helena was firm. "Allison needs you here," she said. "She's fussy because she's teething, and someone has to clean up the mess she made in the playroom." As Allison got older, my responsibilities only grew. I had to keep a constant eye on her, making sure she didn't tumble while learning to walk or put dangerous objects in her mouth. Meanwhile, Allison was the center of attention, receiving gifts and love at every turn. Any tantrum she threw was quickly pacified with a new toy or a treat. When Allison turned 5, she realized she could manipulate situations to her advantage, and she did not hold back. Once, she purposely spilled juice on her new dress and ran to Helena, crying, "Dana pushed me." I was grounded for the whole weekend. Another time, she broke her musical toy and blamed me, even though I was busy with homework. I ended up losing my allowance for a month to replace it. The worst incident was when she cut up her party dress, hid the scissors in my backpack, and got me in trouble. "How could you be so jealous?" Helena screamed when she found them during a room inspection. I tried to defend myself, but Dad cut me off. "Go to your room. We'll talk about your punishment later." Through all this, Allison learned she could get away with anything, while I bore the blame. The only solace I found was with Grandma Maya. Every weekend at her house was a reprieve, a place where I could be a child. Her cozy home smelled of fresh-baked cookies, and she offered unconditional love. "Look at you, skin and bones," she'd exclaim, piling pancakes onto my plate. "That woman's turning you into Cinderella." Grandma Maya's home was a haven where laughter was encouraged, and I didn't have to tiptoe around. When Allison visited Grandma's with me, she quickly realized her usual antics wouldn't work. "I want ice cream before dinner," she demanded, stomping her feet. But Grandma was unyielding. In this house, we eat dinner first, and there are no rewards for tantrums. Allison never returned. Grandma's house is boring, she complained to our parents. What she meant was that Grandma enforced rules fairly for everyone. Everything changed the day Grandma visited and witnessed one of Allison's tantrums over homework. "Carter," Grandma said sternly to my dad, "that child is spoiled. Helena, you need to handle this better. You're raising a tyrant." Helena's face flushed with anger. "How dare you criticize my parenting? You have no right." Grandma stood her ground. "I have every right when I see my granddaughters being treated so unfairly." That night, I overheard more yelling. Helena cried, saying she wouldn't tolerate such disrespect, and Dad, as usual, sided with her. The next day, Helena declared we wouldn't be visiting Grandma Maya anymore. "But that's not fair," I protested. "Life isn't fair," Helena snapped back, threatening to ground me until college if I tried to contact her. College became my beacon of hope in the years that followed. I immersed myself fully in my studies as I eagerly counted down to graduation. My mother had left behind funds specifically for my education, a fact I'd heard my father discuss numerous times. This money was my escape route. Then, on graduation day, still dressed in my cap and gown, my father and his wife Helena sat me down for a serious conversation about college. My father, avoiding my gaze, broke the news. "We've decided to use that money for Allison's education instead." Everything around me came to a sudden halt. Helena chimed in, "Your sister has promising prospects, and well, you're better suited for hands-on work." I lost my composure completely, and for the first time, I raised my voice. "That's my money. Mom left it for me." "Dad, you promised her." "You're nothing but a liar." My father, infuriated, retorted, "Ungrateful child. After all we've done for you, leave by tomorrow and start your adult life elsewhere." I didn't wait until the next day. I stormed upstairs, hastily packed my essentials and a cherished photo of my mom, and left. My friend Lauren had always told me her home was open if I ever needed a place, and now I desperately did. Life transitioned to waitressing after high school, a far cry from my dreams, but it helped pay the bills. I worked tirelessly at the Silver Spoon, a bustling downtown diner, enduring double shifts to make ends meet. My days ended with sore feet and clothes reeking of food, but I cherished my newfound independence. Lauren's parents were kind, hosting me during those initial tough months, but I knew I couldn't stay indefinitely. That's when I met Hayden, a fellow waitress, who was searching for a roommate. "The apartment is small, and the neighbors are noisy, but it's affordable," she had warned. It was indeed cramped, barely fitting 2 beds and a sofa, but it was ours. We worked together, shared expenses, and managed to make it work. Hayden would often ask about my plans for school, but with my tight budget, college seemed like a lost dream. Then, unexpectedly, a call from my grandmother came on a random Tuesday. My hands nearly slipped from shock when I recognized the number. "Dana, darling, how is college?" she inquired. My voice faltered as I confessed, "I'm not in college, Grandma." I poured out my story, the argument, being disowned, and my life as a waitress. After a heavy silence, my grandmother's voice cracked with anger as she condemned their selfishness. "Listen, Dana, I'm paying for your college. No arguments. Your mother was like a daughter to me, and I refuse to let them sabotage your future. Have you considered any schools?" I mentioned the local university's evening classes. "Perfect," she said. "We'll get you enrolled for next semester. But, Dana," she added, "let's keep this between us. I don't want any trouble with your father or Helena." Laughing through tears, I replied, "Trust me, Grandma. Neither do I." So, that's how I balance life as a full-time waitress and part-time student, starting each day at 6 a.m. with studies, attending classes, and then heading straight to work until the diner closed. Navigating the challenges of my new life, I often found solace in the rhythm of my routine, working long hours at the diner and then diving into my studies late into the night. Hayden, my roommate, watched in amazement as I juggled my responsibilities. "Seriously, when do you sleep?" she'd ask, baffled by my relentless energy. "Sleep is overrated," I'd reply with a grin, downing yet another cup of coffee, feeling a surge of pride with each academic and personal milestone I achieved. Despite not being able to use the funds my mother left, I was carving out the educational path she had hoped for me, and I did so under the radar. My family, unaware of my academic pursuits, likely assumed I was merely scraping by as a waitress, stuck in a dead-end job. I preferred it that way, freeing myself from the burden of their expectations. This detachment from my family was underscored one day when Allison's message popped up on my Facebook feed. There she was, beaming next to a luxurious new red Mercedes, dressed in expensive clothes, her post dripping with condescension. "Look what Mom and Dad got me for my birthday. Too bad you don't know the luxury of nice things, huh? Still stuck serving burgers, watching life pass you by," she taunted, followed by a boast about her fully funded college life, complete with a European spring break. The sting of her words was sharp, but instead of engaging, I chose to block her and focus on my own goals. 2 weeks later, my perseverance paid off as I graduated with my business degree, with only my supportive grandmother in attendance. After the ceremony, we celebrated quietly, choosing a restaurant where my professional ties didn't extend. Soon after, an unexpected opportunity arose at work. Mr. Andrew, recognizing my hard work and new credentials, offered me a promotion to shift manager. "You've shown incredible dedication and leadership, and with your academic background, you're ideal for this role," he explained. That promotion marked the beginning of a rapid ascent in my career. Within 5 months, I advanced to floor administrator, and my salary increase allowed me to move into a more comfortable living situation, far removed from the cramped quarters I once shared with Hayden. As time passed, my role expanded, and by my early 30s, I was managing the entire restaurant, transforming the Silver Spoon into a top-rated city hotspot. Despite this success, my family still perceived me merely as a waitress. Now living in a high-rise apartment with a stunning view of the city skyline, I reflected on my journey from a scared teenager to a successful businesswoman. That reflection was interrupted one Monday morning by a message from Mrs. Roberts, a kind-hearted neighbor from my past who had kept in touch. She warned me of Allison's upcoming graduation celebration planned at the Silver Spoon, revealing her intentions to humiliate me by having me serve her and her friends. This news was disheartening, but it also strengthened my resolve to maintain my dignity and professionalism, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. As I sat back in my leather office chair, I gazed through the one-way glass on the restaurant floor below. The lunch rush was starting, and I watched my well-trained staff glide between tables in a dance of precision and grace. A slow smile spread across my face as I opened the restaurant's reservation system. There it was, Allison Wilson, party of 13, Saturday, 8 p.m., graduation celebration. She had even requested the best table in the house, noting that price was no object. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could easily cancel the reservation with a click, maybe have Janet, my assistant, call them with an excuse about a plumbing issue or a double booking. But a more appealing idea formed in my mind. I picked up my phone and dialed Grandma, who picked up on the second ring, likely from her garden where she tended her prized Mayas. "You'll never guess who's coming to dine at my restaurant," I began, and shared the news of Allison's reservation and her intent, as Mrs. Roberts had warned me, to use the occasion to belittle me in front of our old neighbors and family. Grandma's voice sharpened immediately. "Cancel their reservation, Dana. You don't need that negativity in your life. Haven't they hurt you enough?" I couldn't help but grin as I glanced at the Businesswoman of the Year award on my wall. "Actually, I have a better idea. How would you like to come to dinner that night? I'll give you the best table in the house, hidden behind the marble column by the waterfall wall. You'll see everything, but they won't see you." After a pause, Grandma's laughter filled my ear, that deep, mischievous sound that spelled trouble during my childhood. "Oh, you devious girl.
Count me in."
"Should I wear my pearls?" "Perfect," I replied. "And Parker has been perfecting that new raspberry sauce you liked last time. I'll make sure he prepares your favorite chocolate souffle. I'll bring my camera." This is going to be better than those reality TV shows you used to watch, she chuckled. After hanging up, I instructed Janet, clear my schedule for next Saturday evening, and inform the staff I'll be personally handling a special table. Of course, Miss Wilson. Anything else? Yes, I said, my fingers tracing the spine of my business management degree diploma on the wall. Make sure we have our finest champagne chilled and ask Jameson to prepare his special caviar appetizers. It's going to be quite a memorable night. As the day approached, the usual weekend buzz filled the restaurant. Watching from my office as Allison's party arrived, I noted her lavish designer dress, Helena's over-the-top makeup, and my father, looking older and more worn than I remembered. Their group, dressed to impress, filled the designated table, completely oblivious to the fact that they were in my domain now. Hidden away, Grandma sat at her specially arranged table, pretending to peruse the menu while observing the scene. She sent me a subtle wink, reassuring me of our shared secret. This was more than a dinner. It was a moment of triumph, a theatrical display of how far I had come, and a silent rebuttal to every doubt they had ever cast my way. As I circulated the restaurant floor, Allison's loud voice cut through the ambient chatter. Excuse me. I specifically requested my sister Dana as our server. Where is she? I straightened my tailored suit jacket and approached their table with a composed stride. Allison's face broke into a wide, malicious grin as she spotted me. Oh my God, everyone. This is my sister I was telling you about, she announced, waving towards me as though I were a sideshow attraction. Still a waitress after all these years. I mean, I just graduated from state, and she's still here carrying plates. Laughter erupted from her group, my father chuckling along though he avoided my gaze, while Helena wore that all-too-familiar smug expression. Look at her clothes, Allison whispered theatrically to her friends. Guess that's what you can afford on a waitress's salary. Standing there in my Armani suit, I allowed them a moment of laughter. The irony of their mockery wasn't lost on me. What can I get for you this evening? I asked professionally, despite the jibes. Allison theatrically perused the menu. Well, since you asked,
I am Sally, age 30, and this is the account of my life ensnared in a complex web of deceit and betrayal. Yet, it's also the narrative of my resilience against manipulation and malice, attaining justice against both my husband and mother-in-law. I encountered Jackson, my husband, a charming and charismatic man. Swept away by his affectionate words and promises of a bright future, we fell deeply in love and swiftly tied the knot, believing our love would conquer all. Little did I know that our story would take a treacherous turn, with the source of my torment being Jackson's mother, Thora. From the outset, Thora harbored a profound resentment towards me, perceiving me as an intruder in her son's life. She epitomized the type of mother that necessitates deep psychosocial research to understand, as her behavior was spiraling out of control. For 6 years, Jackson had been channeling his entire salary to Thora, leaving our financial stability hanging by a thread. This betrayal cut deep, tearing at the very fabric of our marriage. Despite my incessant pleas for him to cease this, he consistently brushed me off, asserting, "My mother takes precedence over our budding family." At the time we married, I was only 22, a naive young girl who believed my husband would eventually realize his mistakes and change due to the depth of his love for me. I now recognize the folly in my thinking. Regrettably, fear held me back from speaking up against both Jackson and Thora. They operated as a package deal, their arrogance and hot-headedness forming a formidable force of evil and destruction. It took me 6 years to fully comprehend this. As time passed, tensions between Thora and me intensified. At every opportunity, she belittled me, making it abundantly clear that I was unwelcome in her house and life. She considered my presence a privilege that not many could afford. Despite enduring verbal and emotional abuse, my attempts to share my concerns with my husband were consistently rebuffed. His indifference to my suffering made him complicit in the torment, and forgiveness became an elusive notion. The true extent of her animosity became evident when Jackson lost his job. Without hesitation, she promptly evicted me, asserting, "The house Jackson and you occupied is mine." This act crushed my spirit, rendering me vulnerable and homeless. I couldn't fathom how Thora could harbor such intense hatred. In response, Thora callously remarked, "It's not that I hate you, darling. I simply don't care for you. After Jackson lost his job, he can't support you anymore. This is my house, and in certain ways, it's always been mine." Confused and hurt, I questioned her motives, arguing, "But it's been only Jackson and me living in this house." Thora's response implied a disruptive shift in the family dynamic and control over household funds. When I dared to challenge her, she berated me, refusing to divulge any details, claiming, "You no longer have a right to know." As I left, vowing to expose her sinister plan to Jackson, she dismissed my concerns with disdain. Calling Jackson in desperation, I expected support. However, his response conveyed obliviousness, as he asked, "What's going on? You seem upset." Overwhelmed, I revealed, "Thora expelled me from the house on the same day you lost your job." Shocked, Jackson questioned, "Why?" I disclosed the years of financial support he had been providing his mother without regard for our stability, saying, "I endured silent suffering, holding on to the hope that you would change, while she manipulated you." Don't deny her actions. Someone under manipulation often remains unaware until awakening from the deception. My dear husband, you are still ensnared by her spell, I concluded. Furious, Jackson retorted, "Sally, if you persist in speaking ill of my mother, you'll not only give her my money, but also need to cease your delusions." His voice sounded demanding. "Recognize that her treatment of me is unjust. I am your wife, and your inaction is disheartening," I defended myself. "It's no surprise she expelled you from the house," he continued to taunt. "Excuse me?" I asked, not believing what I was hearing. "You heard me," Jackson responded coldly. "I won't tolerate disrespect towards her and me. Pack up your belongings and leave my mother's house immediately," he stated. I couldn't fathom what I was hearing. Had I entered an alternate dimension where demeaning your wife was a gesture of love? Certainly not. Why was he addressing me this way? Without uttering a word, I returned to the house to find Thora smirking, reveling in her new ownership and my impending departure from her and her son's life. I bit my tongue, summoning all my strength to remain silent. I quietly packed my things, resisting the urge to act violently and risk going to jail. Despite my anger, I was undeniably hurt and confused. What kind of mother-in-law treated her daughter-in-law like this? I sought refuge with a friend, nursing my wounds and piecing my shattered life back together. The despair fueled a determination for retribution against the injustice I had endured. I couldn't let Thora's actions go unanswered, nor could I let my foolish husband, Jackson, off the hook. They both needed to face consequences. My friend insisted, "You can't let these actions go unpunished." She persistently escalated the conflict, compelling me to decide to return to the house and once again express my thoughts to Thora. Standing in front of Thora's house for the second time that day, a mix of nervousness and determination pounded through my heart. It was time to confront her and ensure that she faced the consequences of her actions. Upon entering, a rush of memories overwhelmed me. This house had been a site of anguish and manipulation, but soon it would become a symbol of my triumph. Thora, seeing me, exclaimed, "What brings you here, Sally? You have no right to be in my house." "Oh, I believe you'll find that I do, Thora. Your actions led me here," I responded. Thora's face twisted with surprise and disbelief. She had anticipated my mission and retreat, but little did she know that I had discovered my strength. "Do you think you can just stroll in here and take whatever you want? You're nothing but a parasite, Sally," she uttered venomously. "No, Thora," I replied firmly. "I'm no longer the timid woman you could manipulate. I've grown stronger, and I've had my fill of your games. You used my husband's earnings to construct this house, and now it's time for me to take control," I added. "You're delusional if you think you can outmaneuver me," Thora retorted. "I've been manipulating people my entire life," she continued. "Manipulation may be your specialty, Thora, but today the tables have turned. You underestimated me just as you underestimated the power of a woman who has been pushed to her limit, I remarked. As we exchanged heated words, the tension in the room became palpable. This wasn't merely a confrontation between two individuals. It was a clash of wills, a struggle for justice. You may have won this battle, Thora, but the war isn't over. I'll make sure you regret this, I continued. I've spent years living under your shadow, enduring your abuse, but today I'm reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my freedom. Your reign is over. Have the day you think you deserve. With those concluding words, I turned away from Thora, leaving her stunned and defeated. Walking out of the house, a sense of triumph filled my heart. It was a modest victory, but it marked a stride toward a future free from manipulation and pain. The journey ahead remained challenging, yet fear had ceased to grip me. I had faced my tormentor, and in doing so, discovered an inner strength. A firm believer in the workings of karma, I stumbled upon something advantageous as I left the property. Observing a pair of contractors affixing a conspicuous red auction sign on my mother-in-law's front porch left me intrigued and somewhat uneasy. Was she so hastily auctioning off the place? And if so, why? Given her history of shady business dealings, this unexpected development raised suspicions that her auctioning of the house might be part of a larger scheme. Considering the possibility that she aimed to cover her tracks by selling the house, I returned to my confidant, sharing the new information. She too found the situation suspicious. Fortunate timing, she remarked. You need to think of the perfect revenge. Further research confirmed Thora's intention to auction the house the next day, deepening my suspicions. It was clear that I needed to thwart the auction and uncover the shady practices at play. The following day, chance led me to an auction notice for Thora's house, a stroke of fate offering an opportunity to regain control over my destiny. With newfound determination, I meticulously devised a plan. Studying the housing market and calculating my maximum bid, I prepared to confront Thora, most unexpectedly. Little did she know that I had emerged from the ashes, transformed by the strength adversity had granted me. Stepping into the auction room, my heart pounded with a mix of nervousness and determination. However, my entrance was promptly halted by the individuals who had made my life unbearable for the past 6 years. One of them, Thora, immediately exclaimed, "Why are you here? Are you obsessed with this?" Her voice dripped with disdain. "I told you not to be here," she continued, her anger barely contained. "I'm still very upset with you," Thora added. "Yeah, well, the feeling is mutual, believe me," I responded, holding my ground. "I'm here for the auction." The shock on their faces was evident as they gasped in unison. "Absolutely. I possess the same entitlement to be present here as anyone else does. If my presence displeases you, feel free to address the matter with the authorities after I file a harassment report," I continued. Thora's daughter Jenna sneered. "Do you believe you can acquire this house? That's quite a stretch, dear," and added, "Should I kick her out, Mom?" Jenna asked, turning to Thora with a smirk. Thora shook her head, dismissive. "No need. She's merely making a spectacle of herself. It's evident she can't afford to be here," the mother-in-law uttered haughtily. "We'll see about that," I shot back, unfazed by their contempt. We both strolled away to our designated positions, and Thora cast me a scornful glance. Despite the tension, I composed myself, making an effort to seamlessly blend into the crowd. As the auction unfolded, I locked eyes with Thora, a spark of defiance and triumph clearly reflected in my gaze. The auction hall buzzed with anticipation, bidders eagerly fixating on the stage, where the sought-after house would soon be up for grabs. Standing there, my heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and determination, I listened as the auctioneer began. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an exceptional property on the market today. Up for auction is a beautiful mid-century modern house with a storied history. Let the bidding commence." Strategically playing my cards, cognizant of Thora's dubious financial background, I discreetly leaked information about her alleged embezzlement, casting a shadow over the property's reputation. Prospective buyers hesitated, unsure of the associated risks. It was my opportune moment to make a move. "We have a bid of $310,000. Any higher offers?" the auctioneer asked. Silence. Not a single paddle was raised. Why aren't people bidding more? This is my house, Thora declared, her voice rising in desperation. I looked her in the eye. Looks like your secrets have finally caught up with you, Thora. No one is willing to pay more due to the questionable nature of it all. I smirked. Thora's face flushed with fury as the reality set in. She was losing control, mirroring the years she spent trying to dominate our lives. I observed a hint of panic in her eyes, a vulnerability that had been concealed beneath her manipulative tactics. Sally, we need to talk. This isn't right, Jackson pleaded, his voice tinged with regret. I shook my head. Save your apologies, Jackson. It's too late. You had 6 years to advocate for me, to prioritize our happiness. Now it's my turn to take charge of my own life, I replied to him, and looked at my mother-in-law. Refrain from your insults, Thora. Your era of control concludes here. This house will stand as a symbol of my triumph, a reminder that I refuse to be silenced or dismissed any longer, I said firmly. When I raised my paddle, the auctioneer started the bidding at $420,000. No one responded. He tried again, lowering the price. Okay, $310,000, he declared, going once, twice, and it was sold. In an instant, a house worth over $1 million was snatched for a mere $310,000, and it was now mine. I couldn't believe it. Disappointed attendees filtered towards the exit, unimpressed by the unexpected turn of events, especially after news of alleged embezzlement had surfaced just before the bid. Thora's visage twisted with a mix of anger and disbelief. In a desperate attempt to regain control, she unleashed her frustration. That house holds no value. You'll regret this, she spat, predicting remorse on my part for claiming victory. I met her gaze, my voice calm and measured. Don't concern yourself, Thora. I have plans, and this house is a mere stepping stone to a brighter future. Regrets are reserved for those who've lost everything, much like yourself, I gloated. With those words, I turned away from Thora, leaving her engulfed in seething rage, screaming and crying, while Jackson tried in vain to console her, a scene resembling a chaotic emotional storm. The flavor of triumph surpassed my wildest expectations. Walking away, a wave of liberation washed over me, emancipating myself from the chains of manipulation. Jackson, laden with remorse and desperation, attempted to approach me, but I held my ground, impervious to empty promises. Jackson, it's done. I refuse to be a pawn in this toxic game any longer. We're finished. Once I settle in my new home, the divorce papers will be on their way, I stated. But where will we live? Jackson inquired, his voice trembling with concern. I looked at him, my expression firm. Your concerns should shift to the embezzlement accusation because, at this rate, both of you might find yourselves in jail, I concluded. Sally, reconsider, he pleaded, his voice breaking. Too late, Jackson, the deed is done. Enjoy your life and convey to your mother that anger isn't her best look, I finished. In the background, Thora continued to shriek, consumed by fury. I relished every moment. Despite her efforts to address the embezzlement claims, her image had already been tarnished by her unsavory outburst during the auction. People perceived her as unhinged and aggressive, prompting them to distance themselves. With pride held high, I departed from the crumbling remnants of my past. The confrontation marked a pivotal turning point in my life. In a moment of newfound clarity and strength, I acknowledged the forthcoming challenges with unwavering resilience. While revenge had been the catalyst, it was the pursuit of self-empowerment and happiness that steered me forward. The aftermath of my revenge left an indelible mark on our lives. As the highest bidder, I now possessed Thora's house, the very place from which she had expelled me. Although this triumph carried a hint of bitterness, it served as a powerful emblem of my perseverance and resilience. I directed my energy toward crafting a new existence, one where I held the reins of my destiny. Launching a modest business specializing in handmade crochet clothing, I invested creativity into every intricate stitch. The word quickly spread, and my enterprise flourished, broadening its customer base as the community warmly embraced my creations. The unwavering support I received proved indispensable as my business prospered. With growth came aspirations for additional properties, and the once dilapidated apartment occupied by Thora and Jackson became a constant reminder of their downfall. They ended up being shunned by the community, trust eroded despite Jackson's occasional appeals, pleading for a brief respite alongside Thora. I remained steadfast. As Jenna, it was inconceivable to me how everything had unraveled, a consequence of her mother's self-centered and avaricious actions. She should have stood up for me years ago and confronted her mother's transgressions. Their lives spiraled downward in a cascading effect, crashing with force, intensity, and grandiosity, echoing the repercussions of their betrayal across every facet. They teetered on the edge of a trial that promised to expose their deceit, attracting more attention. The weight of their actions bore down heavily, leaving behind lingering emptiness and heightened frustration. Then one day, Thora herself called, having lost everything and pleading for help. The consequences of her choices had finally caught up with her. I emphasized that my true motivation was seeking justice and reclaiming my power, not merely seeking revenge. The community rallied behind me, offering support and admiration for my resilience, and attracting even more customers. Through this success, I discovered a newfound understanding of my strength and determination. The closure I had yearned for was finally within reach. As I surveyed the properties I now owned, revenge may have propelled me forward, but it was perseverance and resilience that brought genuine fulfillment. Although the past was instrumental in molding who I am, it no longer held sway over my identity. Each day that unfolded enabled me to appreciate the beauty of my ongoing journey, gradually leaving the shadows of betrayal in the past. Greetings, my name is Cora, and I am a 37-year-old woman who has been happily married to my husband, Damien, for the past 10 years. My relationship with Damien has always been one of pure love and trust. This also bled into our family's lives, as we were both loved dearly by each other's families. His parents always treated me like I was their child, and my parents did the same for Damien. The only person I could never win over was Damien's sister, Serenity. My relationship with my sister-in-law, Serenity, had always been complicated. From the moment I entered her family, there was an undeniable tension between us. She was the polar opposite of me in many ways, outgoing, impulsive, and always seeking attention. I, on the other hand, was reserved, cautious, and preferred a quieter existence. Our personalities clashed, and it seemed like we were destined to be at odds with each other. Every time we had a family event, Serenity and I would get into a heated argument about something. One year, it got so bad that I stopped going to family events when I knew she would be there. My husband Damien was always by my side, and I'm so grateful for that. Whenever Serenity got too out of hand, Damien would come to my rescue and put Serenity in her place. This only made Serenity hate me more. Yet I tried to be good to her whenever we met. I avoided arguments with her to the best of my ability, and over the past few years, our relationship got slightly better. Recently, Damien was offered the opportunity to work abroad for a couple of months. Coincidentally, Serenity was in a tough spot financially. Damien asked me, "Babe, would you be okay with my sister staying with us while I'm away?" I hesitated but responded, "I get that she's going through a tough time, but I have some concerns." Damien nodded. "I know it may seem difficult, but hear me out. It could be a chance for us to rebuild our relationship with Serenity. Plus, it would give her a place to stay without worrying about finances." I sighed. "I get your point, but you know how strained things have been between us. Are you sure it's a good idea to have her living under the same roof?" "Well, I believe that this could be an opportunity for us to reconcile. We could set boundaries and communicate openly. It's not going to be easy, but it could help us move forward," Damien reassured me. I wanted to trust his judgment, but I was scared about potential fights. "We've worked so hard to build our lives together. I don't want anything to ruin that," I uttered apprehensively. "I know, and I'm just as worried as you are," Damien said gently, "but I believe we're strong enough to face any challenges that come our way. We can set some ground rules and maintain open communication with Serenity." I'm sure it will help, he reassured. After a moment, I agreed. Okay, sweetheart. If you genuinely think this is the right thing to do, then I'll support your decision, I replied. In my heart, I wished that we might somehow find a way to connect and build a relationship as sisters-in-law. I wanted her to see that, despite our differences, I still cared for her. After all, she was Damien's baby sister, and he loved her dearly. I wanted to extend that same kind of care to her, to show her that we could overcome our differences and enjoy each other's company. When Serenity moved in, I made sure to make her feel welcome. I offered her our spare bedroom, even letting her borrow some of my clothes and jewelry, thinking it would be a bonding experience. Unfortunately, it did nothing for our relationship. Serenity continued to ignore my existence, and whenever she did acknowledge me, she was rude and indifferent. I let it go, thinking that relationships required time and effort to change for the better. I didn't tell Damien about her behavior, because I didn't want him to intervene. If he scolded Serenity for how she treated me, she would only treat me worse. I could barely put up with her coldness as it was, and if it got worse, I was afraid I'd have to kick her out of the house. I took up all the household chores, cleaning and cooking meals for both of us. I never asked her to contribute in any way, neither around the house nor financially. She was practically living for free and being treated like a queen. One day, I informed Serenity that I would be going on a trip with my friends during the weekend, so she would have the house to herself. For the first time since she moved in, her eyes lit up with joy. It hurt me that the thought of me being away brought her so much happiness, but I let it go and chose to focus on the trip I had ahead of me. When I returned from my trip, I walked in and greeted Serenity with a smile. She sneered in response. Choosing not to let it bother me, I made my way to my room to unpack and lie down for a while. As I unpacked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Standing by my dresser, I scanned the room. While it looked untouched to the normal eye, I knew my room like the back of my hand. I was very particular about the way things were kept, and a lot of the items in my room looked like they had been moved around. My heart raced with panic. My first instinct was to check my jewelry box. I have a necklace that's a family heirloom. It belonged to my great-great-grandmother, who then passed it to her first daughter, and so the tradition continued. The necklace, inlaid with precious stones and made with pure silver, symbolized adulthood, acceptance, trust, and love in my family. It was given to me by my mother when she knew her time on earth was ending. I remember her handing me the necklace, telling me how much she loved me and how proud she was of me while I sat beside her hospital bed, crying. I kept the necklace in my drawer because it hurt too much to see it. The sight of it reminded me of my mother in her last moments, and it always made me cry. I opened the jewelry box, tears already blurring my vision as memories flooded my mind. But instead of finding the necklace, I was greeted with an empty box. My heart dropped to my stomach, and for a good minute, I couldn't hear or see anything except the sound of my ears ringing. In a daze, I called Damien. He picked up on the last ring and answered with a groggy, "Hello?" "Damien, I can't believe it. The necklace, it's gone. It's not in the box," I stammered, my voice shaking. "What? What happened? Are you okay?" Damien asked, his voice filled with concern. "No, I don't know what to do. The necklace, the one my mother gave me, it's missing." "I can't even think straight right now," I confessed, my words tumbling out in a rush. "Take a deep breath, Jess. I'm so sorry this happened. Just remember, it's just a material possession. What matters most is the love and memories you shared with your mother." Damien tried to comfort me. "But it held so much value for me," I whispered. "It was a symbol of trust and love passed down through generations, and now it's gone. I feel like I've lost a piece of my mother," I added with bitterness in my voice. "I understand, sweetheart. Losing something so meaningful is incredibly difficult. But remember, the love and bonds you shared with your mother will always be with you," Damien said softly. "Thanks, baby. I just feel so lost right now. I don't know where to begin looking or how to come to terms with this," I admitted, tears streaming down my face. "We'll figure it out," Damien assured me. "Let's start by contacting the authorities and reporting the theft. And remember, I'm here for you every step of the way. We'll support each other through this," he continued to comfort. I'm so grateful for you, babe. Knowing that you're by my side gives me strength. I'll call you again when I have more news, I said, feeling a bit more grounded. As the panic subsided, it was replaced by rage. I began tearing through my room, desperately searching for the necklace. When I didn't find it, I turned over the entire house. I asked Serenity if she had seen it, and she scoffed at me, saying she didn't even know I had jewelry. I asked if she had anyone over or if she noticed anything missing from my room, but she shrugged and said no before walking back into her room. Since Serenity denied seeing it, I assumed we had been robbed. I quickly lodged a complaint with the police. They promised to do everything within their capacity to help me find it and advised me to install cameras in and around the house, which I did immediately. I set up cameras on our front door and in my room. The next few days, I was inconsolable. Damien tried his best to make me feel better, even having a bouquet and chocolates delivered to cheer me up. Serenity, on the other hand, couldn't have cared less. Whenever I was slow to complete some of the household chores, she would complain and make a big deal about it. Eventually, her attitude towards me became too much, so I left the house and stayed with one of my friends for a couple of days. Damien must have spoken to Serenity because she texted me an apology, and I decided to go back home. When I got back, Serenity wasn't there, which I was grateful for. I went into my room and was once again greeted with that same feeling of dread. My room had been tampered with again. I went back to my jewelry box and found even more jewelry missing. This time, it was the promise ring Damien had given me when we were in college, the earrings my dad gifted me on my 21st birthday, and the bracelets my best friend had given me. This time, instead of feeling scared, I felt angry. In my gut, I absolutely believed that Serenity had everything to do with my stolen jewelry. I gave her the benefit of the doubt last time, but this time it was inexcusable. Consumed by anger and a burning desire for justice, I realized that Serenity had not only stolen my precious jewelry but also violated my trust. I couldn't let her get away with it. It was time for me to take matters into my own hands and teach her a lesson she would never forget. First, I needed evidence. I carefully reviewed the footage from the security cameras I had installed in the house. After hours of watching the recordings, I finally found what I was looking for. The cameras captured Serenity, sneaking into my room and rummaging through my jewelry box. The footage was crystal clear, leaving no room for doubt. I saved the evidence, ensuring I had copies backed up in multiple secure locations. Armed with this evidence, I devised a plan that would not only expose Serenity's true nature, but also make her pay for her actions. I decided to confront her directly, to make her face the consequences of her betrayal. Before I did anything, I called Damien. I didn't think it would be fair to blindside him with my plan. I believed he had a right to know what his sister was up to. She had finally crossed the last line with me. Damien, there's something I need to tell you, I began, trying to steady my voice. I have evidence and proof of what Serenity has done. What do you mean? Damien sounded confused. What did you find? He asked. I reviewed the security camera footage, I said, taking a deep breath. It's clear as day. Serenity went into our room and stole the necklace, Damien. She betrayed us, I said in desperation. Damien was silent for a moment before responding. Are you sure? I can't believe she would do something like that, he lamented. I have the evidence, I assured him. I didn't want to act without telling you first. I need to confront her and make her face the consequences of her actions. She can't get away with this, I firmly explained. Damien sighed. I understand. It's heartbreaking, but we can't let her continue deceiving us. I'm with you on this, he agreed. Thank you, I said, relieved. Your support means everything to me. Absolutely, he replied firmly. We'll handle the situation with strength and integrity. Gather all the evidence you have, and we'll figure out the best way to approach her. Feeling empowered by Damien's support, I decided it was time to put my plan into action. I texted Serenity and asked her to meet me in a neutral location, a nearby cafe. I wanted a public place where she wouldn't feel comfortable causing a scene. When she arrived, I could see the surprise and unease in her eyes. She knew something was up, but she had no idea what was about to unfold. As we sat down, I maintained my composure, refusing to show any signs of weakness or vulnerability. I looked Serenity straight in the eye and calmly confronted her with the evidence. "Serenity, I have undeniable proof of what you did," I said, my voice steady. "I saw you on the security camera taking my jewelry. Please, just admit it." Serenity's eyes widened in shock, but she quickly composed herself, adopting a defensive stance. "Cora, you must be mistaken. I would never do such a thing. You're being careless and accusing me falsely." "I have video evidence," I countered, showing no sign of backing down. "It clearly shows you taking the necklace from the drawer. I trusted you. This is how you repay me?" "I can't believe you're accusing me," Serenity snapped, trying to shift the blame. "Maybe you misplaced it or forgot where you put it. Don't blame me for your own carelessness." I refused to be swayed. "If you can't admit the truth, then I will be forced to take further action," I scared my sister-in-law. "Believe what you want," Serenity said coldly, "but don't expect me to take responsibility for something I didn't do. You're making a big mistake here." But I wasn't done yet. I knew that true revenge required more than just exposing her deeds. I wanted her to experience the pain and anguish she'd made me feel. I decided to take legal action against her, pressing charges for theft and filing a police report. With the evidence I had gathered, I contacted a trusted lawyer and provided him with the evidence, explaining the full extent of Serenity's actions and the emotional toll it had taken on me. With the evidence in hand, my lawyer helped me file a police report detailing the theft of my precious jewelry and presenting the video footage as proof of Serenity's involvement. The police took the matter seriously and initiated an investigation into the case. In the meantime, my lawyer and I prepared for the legal proceedings. We compiled a comprehensive case against Serenity. It included witness testimonies from friends and family who were aware of our strained relationship. They also spoke about her past rude behavior towards me. These testimonies further supported the notion that Serenity had the motive to steal from me and had a history of ill will towards me. During the legal process, we presented our case in court with the evidence, including the clear video footage of Serenity stealing from my jewelry box. The prosecution argued that she knowingly stole and tried to shift the blame onto me. Serenity, with her lawyer, tried to minimize her involvement and portray herself as a victim. However, the undeniable video evidence contradicted her claims, and my lawyer effectively challenged her narrative, highlighting the ongoing mistreatment I endured. Eventually, Serenity broke down and admitted to selling the jewelry for money. I couldn't hold back my tears. It felt like a part of me was lost. I wanted revenge, but I chose to let the court decide instead. Serenity was found guilty of theft by the court. The judge emphasized the seriousness of her actions and the betrayal of trust. As part of her sentence, Serenity had to do community service and repay me double the value of the stolen jewelry. It was a reminder that her behavior had consequences. Though the amount was significant, it didn't fully console me. I left the courtroom hoping that Serenity had learned something from this experience. However, she instead took to social media and began to write long posts about how I ruined her life. If those items meant so much to her, she should have locked them in a safe, Serenity wrote. She's just careless, and now she's trying to make me look bad. I wish my brother had married someone else. Who cries over jewelry anyway? She needs to get over it, she justified herself. Initially, I tried to let go of the feelings I had when I saw her posts. I figured she was likely just upset that her actions had finally caught up with her and was reacting with anger. However, my last straw was when she decided to insult my family in one of her posts. I decided enough was enough. I was going to exact some more revenge because clearly, a lawsuit and a filed record were not enough to get Serenity to change her behavior toward me. It was time to expose her true nature to the world and make her face the consequences of her actions. I gathered all the evidence I had of her mistreatment, her theft, and her attempts to blame me, and shared it with the world. I documented every detail of Serenity's actions, from her disrespectful behavior to her betrayal of stealing and selling my jewelry. I included screenshots of her hateful social media posts and the video footage of her stealing. With my post prepared, I anonymously shared it on a popular online community forum, exposing Serenity's true nature. Serenity's actions were met with widespread shock and disgust. People were horrified by her behavior and how she tried to blame me for her actions. The post went viral, and her online reputation quickly crumbled as more and more people learned about her true character. Former friends and colleagues shared their own negative experiences with her, which exposed a pattern of toxic behavior. The consequences extended beyond social media. Her workplace discovered her misconduct and launched an internal investigation, which revealed more instances of her unprofessional behavior. As a result, she was fired, losing her job and professional standing. The revelations had a lasting impact. Mutual friends distanced themselves from her. They did not want to be associated with someone that lacked integrity. Serenity found herself isolated and without support. When my husband Damien managed to get off from work and came back home to be with me, he confronted Serenity. "I can't believe you would betray our trust like this, Serenity. You've crossed a line that I never thought you would. Pack your things and leave. I don't want to see you again," he angrily demanded. "Damien, please," Serenity begged. "I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. I'm sorry, I really am," she begged. Damien shook his head, his voice firm. "Sorry isn't enough. Your actions have consequences and now you have to face them. I hope you find a way to change and grow from this, but for now it's time for you to go." Tears streamed down Serenity's face as she pleaded. "Please, Damien, give me another chance," she urged. "No, Serenity, this is where we part ways. Take care of yourself," he responded. I watched Serenity sob loudly, but I felt no compassion toward her. She had done so much harm to me and felt no empathy toward my suffering, so I felt the same for her. My husband escorted her out of our home and wished her luck for her future. In the end, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction and relief. Seeing Serenity face the consequences of her actions brought closure to the pain she had caused. My husband Damien stood by me throughout the whole matter, supporting me every step of the way. His unwavering love and understanding gave me strength. With Serenity's betrayal behind us, we could finally move forward, leaving the past where it belongs.